I know I talked about in the last video about the Arizona Cardinals and their choke job, but hey, salute to the Las Vegas Raiders. They did a little bit of choking themselves this year too. Especially when you look at them, going into their new stadium, granted not exactly the experience you're probably hoping for. Hey, we're going to unveil this brand new stadium and then absolutely have no fans be able to attend because of COVID. But it's a hand that a lot of teams were dealt. You just have to move on, do the best you can. More of a soft landing into your new location than, this big unveiling, this big deal. But even with that, the Raiders started off the season 6-3, and certainly through 9 games, they were looking at being in the playoff mix. You had a notable victory in there against the Kansas City Chiefs, like even in the game later in the year that they lost to the Chiefs. They played really tough and matched up against them really well. So you're looking at this team, you're 6-3. One of your key victories is against the Chiefs. You're thinking, okay, this is possibly, potentially, even perhaps probably a playoff team. And even though they went 1-2 in the next 3 games, you're still looking at a Raiders team with 4 games to go, sitting at 7-5, still having a shot, maybe an outside shot, but still a shot nonetheless at making the playoffs. And all they proceeded to do was go out and lose games to Indy and the Chargers and the Dolphins, and that officially put a bow on their playoff chances for the year. So a team that got off to a decent start, a team that at one point in time had themselves positioned for the playoffs, finished 8-8, and it feels like they frankly could have and should have done more. I mean, you look at them offensively, they were top 10 in the league in total yards per game. Derek Carr had a Derek Carr kind of season. Good, pretty good, not great or special, but he threw for over 4,100 yards, had a 27-9 touchdown interception ratio. Certainly should be enough performance from the quarterback position to at least have you at the bottom of the playoffs, if nothing else. Josh Jacobs, even though he was a little less effective in his second season, ended up with another 1,000-yard campaign. Darren Waller had an outstanding season again as a tight end. You talk about one of those great comeback stories, one of those great, you do things to shoot yourself in the foot, then you figure it out and right yourself and really, really, really unleash your full potential. Darren Waller is one of those nice stories to look at. They got a little bit from Nelson Aguilar, though, and a lot less from Henry Ruggs III, their first-round pick. And you take a guy like that and you take the risk of taking him over his Alabama teammate Jerry Jeudy or over CeeDee Lamb. You're hoping to get a lot more production out of him than you ultimately did as a rookie. Which is kind of a theme for some of these Mayock and Gruden high draft picks. Which brings me to the defense. Why didn't they make the playoffs? Because their defense sucked. They're 25th in the league in total yards allowed per game. They're near bottom of the league in terms of generating pressure. You could talk about the Khalil Mack trade all you want and say who won and who lost, but let's be clear here. This is coming from a Bears fan 3 years later. Neither team won that deal. I want to be clear on that. The Bears, yes, Mack's been there 3 years. They've made it to the playoffs twice. They haven't had a losing season, but they have 0 playoff wins. They made that move like idiots, thinking that Trubisky was going to be that guy. He's not. So now they're locked into this expensive edge rusher who's not impacting the game as much as they need him to based off of the salary that he's commanding. And they're a middle-of-the-road team. Meanwhile, the Raiders, yes, with the deals away of Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper, you're looking at them, they got all these first-round picks. It's a perfect example of just because you get picks doesn't mean anything, especially when the people in charge don't know what the fuck they're doing. Like their best pass rusher by far is still Max Crosby. And while it's great that you get somebody like him in the 4th round, that proves to be a steal, and he absolutely has been. When you take a guy in the top 5 like Clelin Ferrell, and he's not very good, and he's certainly not top 5 pick worthy in terms of talent or production, you got some problems, which kind of ties into a larger theme and trend for this Raiders team. And this is where I'm getting to the punchline about, you talk all that about who won the deal. Like, the Bears didn't win that deal. They have 0 playoff wins in 3 years. That ain't winning shit. That's mediocre crap right there. And the Raiders certainly as fuck didn't win that deal. As you look at some of their recent notable high draft picks, and they've rolled craps on them. Clelin Ferrell, Jonathan Abram, we'll see. Damon Arnett, he wasn't good as a rookie. And you factor that into other high notable picks lately. You know, Gary and Conley, I understand, kind of precedes Mayock, but still, a couple years later, he's a first-round pick. He's not even with the team anymore. P.J. Hall's a second-round pick from Gruden's time. You know, I think his first year in that 2018 when they took Colton Miller in round 1. And what the hell has he done? He's not even there anymore. It's a perfect example and a reminder that when you get all of these picks, if you have people in charge that don't know what the hell they're doing, that's exactly what's going to happen. Is you will look at all that draft pick capital you accumulated and see it as one big, ginormous, gigantic waste. And that's what it is. And that's why the Raiders didn't win that Khalil Mack trade either. And now you're looking at a team that is still tied into Gruden for the long term. We'll see what happens in the long term with Mayock, but you got, another 6-7 years of Gruden's contract? So he ain't fucking going anywhere. And meanwhile, you're a team, in terms of the salary cap, you're pretty close to against it. All the while, you've got Derek Carr, who's a solid, average to maybe slightly above average NFL starting quarterback, but not a stud and not a guy that can truly put a team on his back and take you to the promised land. So you've never really done the full rebuild that you should have fucking done when John Gruden was hired and given that 10-year contract to begin with. Like, it's just immensely stupid. Nothing more I can say about it. Just immensely stupid. So now you're in a situation where you go into this offseason, the number one storyline is, what are they going to do at the quarterback position? Are the Raiders potentially interested in trading for Deshaun Watson? And if they do that, it's probably going to be dependent upon them being able to trade away Derek Carr. And they're going to have to use that Derek Carr trade, potentially, unless the Texans would want Derek Carr in return, to sit there and bring back multiple picks so that way they can package them together, and that's probably unlikely. You know, and we'll see what happens, whether a team like my Bears are going to ridiculously overpay for a guy like Derek Carr, who's the AFC version of Kirk Cousins. You know, I mean, it's possible. But if you're the Raiders, and frankly, if you're Raiders fans, I mean, what do you really have to be excited about right now? You had a bunch of draft pick capital in the past couple of drafts and really crapped the bed with it. I mean, how else can I put it? This might be offending you, and that's too bad. The truth hurts sometimes. Doesn't it? You guys are every bit as irrelevant as my damn Bears are with lesser performances over the past 15 plus years. I mean, even when you look at guys that are pending free agents, it's not like you can sit there and say, oh man, we keep Jonathan Hankins and Nicholas Morrow, or maybe we re-sign Takk McKinley and things will get better. No, you stink. You're lucky you finished damn 8-8 the way things played out, honestly. And you look at the Raiders and you say, man, unless you get a bunch of these guys that you've taken really high the past couple of years to really piece it together and figure it out, like, you're going to be toiling in that 6-10, 6-10, 8-8 territory for years, and then truly wasting whatever you have out of Derek Carr. So they got to get it better and got to get it right and get it quickly, and that's going to have to happen in the offseason. But again, they don't have a ton of cap space, so what the hell are they going to do? And you look at them and you say, how the hell do you not have any cap space when you're not even close to a contender? And you could blame COVID leading to a reduction in the salary cap and everything like that, but really, that just comes to piss poor allocation of resources and what the hell that comes down to. Especially when you're talking about, man, you've had that many first-round picks the past few years, and that's what the hell you've got to show for them? You know, so you still go into this offseason, this draft. Number one need is probably an edge rusher. You've got Max Crosby, and that's about it, which is really dumb when you trade away a Khalil Mack and then you end up investing a top 5 pick into an edge rusher. This should not be a primary need, but it is, because they valued character over competency of play, and NFL skills. They certainly, I still think, need some speed and athleticism in that linebacking core. And especially if they don't retain Nicholas Morrow, they will certainly need that. But even if they do, I still think that's something where the place where they can make a play. But then I look at that offense and I still say wide receiver. You know, who knows what you'll get out of Henry Ruggs and his development going into year 2, but I don't think you could just rest on your laurels and hope that he develops. I'm not sure whether Nelson Aguilar will be brought back or not. Point being is, you're not done there. Good thing is it's another deep wide receiver class, but, you know, just like last draft, you know, if you're picking the wrong guys, what the hell difference does it make? Like the whole, we're going to draft Lynn Bowden and in a couple of months have to trade him away because we determined he's not a good fit for us. Well, what the hell are you doing? You know what I mean? And then you got to think about quarterback too, especially, You know, when you think about Derek Carr, like, I mean, seriously, are you really going to win a chip with him? No. Did you ever really, really go all the way with the rebuild as long as you kept Derek Carr? No. But now you're picking 17th, excuse me. So if you are going to get one of the top 5 quarterbacks, is one of them going to fall to you, and will you have the courage to draft him? Probably not. Which means you're probably drafting in the day 2, day 3 category looking for a guy, but I think they need to find a guy, especially if they trade away Mariota to somebody. Yeah. Like, I look at this Raiders team, and this Raiders team is the type of team that we should be looking at and envisioning them being the greatest threat to the Chiefs. And they played them, to be fair to them, they played them very tough, head-to-head last season, or this past season. But you got to play other teams other than the Chiefs, too. Like, if we're just being completely objective here, the Chargers have a much greater chance of being a bigger threat to the Chiefs in that division right now overall than the Raiders do. And it's because of piss-poor drafting and never really truly fully rebuilding correctly.